In our last episode, we explored the establishment of the Irish National Army, the Civil War, and the horrific bloodshed that helped shape modern Ireland today. Today we will also turn to the post-Civil War, examining how the army was reorganised into the defence forces and how it operated amidst the chaos of a fractured society and the challenges that persisted the nation until 1924. When the Civil War ended on May 24, 1923, the National Army had remained far too large. At its height, the force had swelled to some 60,000 men, unsuitable in peacetime and prohibitively expensive for the Free State to maintain. Many of these recruits lacked proper training and discipline, making them ill-suited for permanent professional army stature, and as the force was gradually reducing in size, the Special Infantry Corps was established in early 1923. Its purpose was to confront agrarian unrest, illegal land occupations and seizure of factories by socialist groups in Munster and Leinster during the fragile post-war years. Ireland faced enormous challenges at the time. Much of the country's infrastructure had been severely damaged, local tax systems had collapsed, and rampant republicanism continued to pose a significant political force. The state was also on the brink of bankruptcy. Following the death of Michael Collins on August 22, 1922, his deputy, General Richard Mulcahy, assumed role of Commander-in-Chief. One of his earliest actions was to reduce the army from roughly 60,000 men to around 18,000, and this downsizing provoked the Army Mutiny of 1923 to 1924. Led largely by former IRA officers who resented the preferential treatment given to British officers over their own in the earlier years. Earlier in the year, word reached Portobello Barracks that the organisation intended to take direct action by seizing a number of barracks and rifles and issuing the terms to the government, and the GHQ quietly took necessary precautions and informed the commanding officers to prepare for trouble, relocating certain troops. In response, Mulcahy issued a firm statement to the army on March 8, 1923. Two army officers have attempted to involve the army in a challenge to the authority of the government. This is an outrageous departure from the spirit of the army, and it will not be tolerated. Officers and men will stand at their post and do their duty today in this new threat of danger, with the same wonderful determined spirit that has always been the spirit of the army. In this episode really does illustrate some of the most significant problems surrounding civil and political stability in the post-war years. The court system was in tatters, the Garda had been, well, not largely set up, they were already unarmed and not very well trained, and various militia units were still widespread across the country. As Kevin O'Higgins noted to W.T. Cosgrave, the head of the government in 1923, the army was an essential instrument for restoring order amid these turbulent times. The army, nevertheless, may have to be used when armed opposition to the law is anticipated, or in case of riots or organised violence beyond the powers of unarmed police. This is a rather controversial move, though understandably given the severe issues plaguing the nation. As mentioned, the SIC, or Special Infantry Corps, was tasked with restoring order to agrarian areas and suppressing socialist groups. The Military Customs Brigade operated in border areas in lieu of any civilian customs and excise service. The Army Intelligence became the government's chief source of information and analysis on a range of domestic threats to public order, and interestingly, many of the threats to order were found to be from ex- or current servicemen within the National Army, found the Director of Army Intelligence. On August 3, 1923, the new state enacted the Defence Forces Temporary Provisions Act, placing the existing armed forces on a legal footing. The Act established an armed force to be called the Óglaigh, or hereafter referred to as the Forces. Post-Civil War, the Irish Army served as the backbone of government authority. By 1932, however, beyond the period covered in this video, its stature had been greatly reduced, largely relegated to the sidelines. The army was reorganised into smaller, highly trained units, modelled on part of a gendarmerie force found across Europe. Though it was not intended for full-scale warfare, and in the north, having made successful peace with Britain in the years following independence, there wasn't a need for a large standing army. Despite this reduction, the country still did obviously require an army for national defence, and as a symbol of pride for those who have fought for independence in 1916 and beyond, and to counter the persistent threat of violent republicanism. Under the Treaty of the Terms, much of Ireland's defence responsibilities were left to the United Kingdom, and Britain was permitted to maintain and retrain naval installations along the Irish coast, though there remained considerable ambiguity about the precise role of any armed Irish force. The devastation of Germany following the First World War had reshaped the European balance of power, and the intelligence services of the day even identified the United States as a potential next major threat. Another clause of the treaty stipulated that no Irish defence force could exceed that in numbers of the British Home Guard, reflecting Ireland's limited status at the time in matters of strategic defence. Before even the end of the Civil War, it was clear that the Free State could not support its large army with its limited economic resources. Mulcahy and his military advisors recognised the need for drastic downsizing on grounds of both efficiency and economy. Their aim was to compact highly trained infantry forces divided into 9 commands, supported by specialist corps, and capable of rapid expansion in times of crisis. Post-treaty, Britain made little effort to solidify a coherent defence policy with Ireland, leaving a tense, ambiguous relationship for several years. In 1923, the British Admiralty issued directives calling for revenue vessels to be turned over to the Imperial Navy in times of war. Between 1924 and 1925, a ruling stipulated that the Irish Army could cooperate with Britain during wartime through joint training and communications, though were minimal, limited mostly to officer training and the occasional supply of weapons, which still remained roughly inadequate. Despite government chaos, parsimony and incoherence in defence planning, the Defence Forces Act of November 1924 finally provided the army with a stable legal foundation. The Act was also resolved problems of allegiance by forbidding membership in oath-bound societies and political organisations, and interestingly, during this period, there was a notable focus on ceremonial institutions such as the School of Music, raising questions about whether ceremony was being prioritised over combat readiness. Some, like Ian Duffy, defended this emphasis, arguing that it cultivated the most essential quality for an army, spirit de corps. On January 31st, 1922, the rank of general was formally established as the most senior position within the army. It was generally held by those who had previously served as the Chief of Staff, including Sean McMahon, who held the post from 1922 to 1924. During the Army Mutiny, McMahon was asked to resign from his commission, and the rank insignia consisted of 3 gold stripes on the shoulder straps and collar. The rank of Lieutenant General does not appear to have been actively held in the period following the Civil War and into the early years of the Irish Defence Force, based on the documentation available. This may or may not be definitive, but if the rank had been used, its insignia would likely have consisted of 2 gold stripes on the shoulder straps and collar. During this period, Major General was the lowest general officer rank within the Irish Army, following the abolitions of positions such as Commandant and Division Commandant, and officers holding this rank could command a Deputy Chief of Staff, area commands, divisions, brigades, one of the few remaining corps within the reduced army. Notable holders include Liam Tobin, a leading figure in the pro-Army Mutiny faction, and Charles Dalton, the Director of Intelligence. Major General consisted of 2 red stripes with a singular gold stripe between them, displayed on the shoulder straps and collar. The rank of Colonel involved command over a regiment within the army, a relatively new structure introduced during the later Civil War period. This change marked a shift from the IRA's previous organisation, which had operated without such units. The insignia for Colonel consisted of 3 red stripes on the shoulder straps and collar, as seen by Michael Joseph Bishop in contemporary photographs. Commandant was the Irish equivalent of Major, with executive command over staff positions, battalion-sized units or other special assignments. Officers in this rank were frequently involved in the Army Mutiny. The insignia consisted of 2 red stripes on the shoulder boards. Captain was the most senior level officer in the company level officers and was responsible for commanding companies or equivalent units of approximately 100 to 150 men. Due to a fluctuating structure of the army and the effects of demobilisation, exact details of command were quite variable, but the insignia consisted of 3 blue stripes on the shoulder straps. Lieutenant was a senior platoon level officer within a company, typically with 3 officers holding this rank per company, and the second lieutenant was an entry level officer, generally assigned to newly trained personnel. The insignia for lieutenant consisted of 3 blue stripes on the shoulder straps, while second lieutenant wore 2 blue stripes. Sergeant Major was the most senior non-commissioned officer within a company, battalion or brigade. Responsibilities included overseeing soldiers' welfare, discipline, training, managing supplies and assisting the commanding officer with administration. The rank insignia consists of 3 dark stripes on the left arm. Sergeants commanded squads, usually of 3 to 4 within a platoon, and they provided field leadership, maintained discipline, supervised training, and ensured proper equipment was used. And the insignia consisted of 2 dark green stripes on the left arm. Corporals served as team leaders within a squad, assisting the sergeant with smaller unit commands, discipline, and the relaying of orders, and the insignia consisted of 1 dark green stripe on the left arm. The volunteer rank originated with the Irish Volunteers of 1913 to 1914, many of whom had fought in the Easter Rising and later joined the IRA. Volunteers held no formal command responsibilities and wore no insignia. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video. My voice has been a little bit off today. I have a wisdom tooth coming in and I'm in agony throughout this recording, so I hope you can forgive me for my, well, not quite as chipper narration. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed. I don't know what I'll cover next. I've really enjoyed doing this 2-part series so far, so I think I might go into the emergency or something. But we'll find out. But I'll see you in a bit.